As the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is accused of cutting back repair efforts when he was Chancellor. And the Education Secretary, Gillian Keegan, apologises for swearing after an interview with ITV News' Daniel Hewitt.
Schools Minister Nick, in March, our correspondent Daniel Hewitt had a Freedom of Information request which showed there were 1,466 schools built in the period, which means that they might be at risk of having that concrete in them. Can you tell us, have you been through all of those 1,466 schools and identified whether there's a problem or not? Or is that still work to be done?
I think it's...
In March, Daniel Hewitt identified a list of 1,466. You are now saying you're about to publish a list of 156 schools.
Yeah.
Does that mean that only those 156 schools are at risk and all the other schools in that wider list, the Hewitt list, have now been investigated and you have said there isn't a problem? Or could there be a lot more than 156 schools where parents at the moment don't know whether their children are safe?
Well, I don't know where the number...
Request that your department gave to ITV so you could find out by asking your own department what's going on.
We replied to lots of FOI requests.
In March, when you refused to come on our programme and answer questions about it. So you could see why, 6 months on, we're slightly worried you still don't know about the Hewitt list. What's going on?
Look, we've done far more.
Done.
It was done. I mean,
but you've just said that you're still awaiting 5% of the questionnaires.
No, the response to...
Because it was entirely incomprehensible.
2018 was the collapse of the ceiling in the primary school in Kent. So why in 2023, at the beginning of term, about the situation in their buildings?
So from 2018...
Can we just translate what you're saying?
Yeah.
You're saying you did everything you could in the Department for Education in 2018 and it's local councils and head teachers who failed in their responsibility.
Not talking about failure. Look, not talking about failure.
Well, someone's failed, Mr.
No,
Gibb,
they haven't.
because
no,
5 years on, we've got parents terrified of sending their children into school in case the ceiling collapses on their head.
That's because we are being extra cautious, abundantly cautious, because of
You think in 2018 you did absolutely everything that a government department in charge of the safety of our children in classrooms, you did everything you possibly could? Or do you think that you are one of those people, or the other people in the department, are the ones that Gillian Keegan is pointing a finger at and saying, how come people aren't thanking her when everyone else was sitting on their backside doing nothing? Because if I was a parent of a child going into one of these classrooms, when a ceiling had collapsed in 2018, I would be wondering why the government hadn't taken a firmer grip of this 5 years ago.
We did.
Us that you don't know that even today, after being there for a year and after Daniel Hewitt's report in March, you still don't know all the schools which have got RAC in. There are some schools you haven't replied. 156 may not be the limit. There may be more schools. There are parents watching our programme whose children are going to schools. The head teacher doesn't know, you don't know, and they don't know if there is a problem in that school. You don't know.
Look,
there are schools which might be at risk and you don't know.
That's a separate issue about whether centrally we're collecting legally for the school buildings. But we wanted to go a stage further than was necessary so that we understood the risks.
Centrally, you gave us the information in March, the list of schools, in the Freedom of Information request. 6 months on, centrally, you still don't know whether all those schools have got a problem or not.
We are...
Schools where you're not confident, eh?
That you can be confident there too.
That 5%, how many schools does that cover, that 5%? That you don't
well, I'm
know?
not entirely clear what that number equals. But
schools are in the 5%.
Hang on, the vast majority of those schools...
Yes, we understand the vast majority. We're not talking about the vast majority.
You used the term 5%,
will not have
Mr. Gibb.
Say again?
So you said 5%. How many schools is 5%?
Well, there are different estimates of how many...
In your name, Mr. Gibb, how many schools are in the 5% that you don't yet know?
Well, look, as I said, the number is that comes in
5% is about 1,000 schools.
It will be only 1%, if that, where RAC is identified. We're talking about a very small number still to be identified.
1% is about another 200 schools. I think.
We don't know for certain, but it could be.
Between 200 and 1,000 extra schools over the 156. 156 plus 200 to 1,000 schools more.
Well, you're coming up with